Hey everybody, this is Anthony Striglia. Today we're going to talk about our first automation or a potential use case to create an automation. So currently we're going to look at the sales order screen. We're going to keep focusing on the status field, and we're going to say that in this organization, the process to go ahead and create an invoice for an order is going to be that after a product is shipped, so we'll say that it was shipped, is to mark the invoice as complete and save it. And then we obviously want to create an invoice. And in this particular case, let's say that this company is always invoicing for all the items on the order. They're never going to have to come through here and check. We're always going to be in accounts receivable. So we don't really need this screen. It's just an extra step. And then we're going to create invoice here. Again, extra step. And then we have an invoice based on that sales order that we closed. But what we want to do is make the workflow automated, or at a very basic level. When this happens, something else happens. So if we look at a shipped sales order, the workflow should go like this. I change the status from shipped to complete. I save it. Maybe I get a pop-up that says, status changed. Would you like to create an invoice? Yes or no. Maybe you don't. Maybe it just automatically creates it, and if it was a mistake, you can delete it. But let's go ahead and just automate it so that when we change the sales order status from shipped to complete, we kind of just go straight through to the invoice. And we're going to automate this in a simplistic way. In reality, there would probably be a little more nuances to this and a little bit more discussion that we would have with a customer talking about automations like this. But let's go ahead and do this as a demo. So I'm going to move this back to shipped and I'm going to save. And then I'm going to go into the customize screen function here. And I'm going to change the save. I'm already in a draft screen for this, but I'm going to go ahead and just get into the save actions, and I'm just going to change kind of what's happening here. So I'm going to let this do its thing, kind of do everything it's already doing. And we're not going to mess with this, but what we're going to do after, or actually what we're going to do just before the save is we want somewhere before the save all. So we need to be before this. What we're going to do is just grab the current value of the status in the table. So this is not what's on the screen. This is going to be what's in the table. And you'll see why we're going to have to do this. Basically, we want this automation to happen when the sales order gets changed to complete, but not anytime you save it after it's complete if there's any changes or anything that get made. In theory, there shouldn't be any changes that get made after the fact, but it doesn't always work like that. So we're going to get the sales order status. Sorry, this is the filter. So we need the record ID is equal to the screen active. And then the field that we're going to retrieve is the sales order status. And that's just going to be result old status. Okay, so we're grabbing the old status of the sales order. Now, after the save down here, we could either grab the new status of the sales order or we could grab what's on the screen. And if we get past the save, there's no stops here. So if we get past the save, we should get down to here. So that's probably okay. We'll put this down here and we will say, we'll say, so we'll say if the old status is not equal to complete, you always have to think about whether or not you should use record IDs or names of statuses or any field for that matter. That's a drop down list. Whether you should use record IDs or the names, the actual names. The names can be changed. The record IDs can't. They can be added. So think long term when you're doing these modifications. The preference probably is to use the record ID. If you ever change the name of this status to closed, then this automation won't work. If you want to use the record ID, you have to go get it out of the table and find out what the complete record ID is, or build a screen that will show you the statuses, the maintain statuses screen. You can do that too. And then you can use the record ID that way. But for the sake of the demo, we'll just make it easy on ourselves and make it work as is. So we're going to say status. This is what's on the screen right now. And we want that to be equal to complete. Typos are always the reason stuff doesn't work when I go and test it and it doesn't work. It's because I spelled something wrong. Okay, so then we're saying if it's not complete, it is complete now. All we're going to do is call the routine. Excuse me. We're going to call the routine create invoice click. That's all we're doing. So basically, that's our first automation. We're going to go a little deeper than that, but that's as easy as it is for our first automation. We're saving ourselves one click. We don't have to, actually we're saving ourselves 2 clicks. We don't have to click the up arrow and then click create invoice. So now, if I have a sales order that is shipped and I make it complete. Oh, did we do complete or completed? That's another reason that it's usually better to use the record IDs of a status rather than the text, because maybe you spelled it wrong. Maybe you didn't use the right one. Just understand that whichever you decide to use, let's say you went and changed the completed record, the completed status to, pending or something for some reason. For not only is it going to change all the history of the statuses of all your orders in your system, but it's also going to break this automation. Whereas if you use the record ID, it's not going to break it. But if you wanted say you wanted all your shipped orders to change the verbiage to delivered, if you use the record ID on an automation like that, it wouldn't break it, but you're changing what all the shipped order statuses say. Okay, so I'm changing this from ship to complete. I'll save this, and it's automatically going to call the create invoice function and bring us to this screen. Now, when we get to this screen, we want to actually automatically create this invoice with everything checked and AR there. So, and then click this create invoice button. We basically want to skip this step. In this hypothetical example, this company that is completing these sales orders. Complete means complete and fully delivered, finished, and ready to invoice. Maybe there's a partially done in here, on hold or whatever. The hypothetical workflow here is that when you change this to completed, the entire order gets invoiced, and that's it. So let's go back to that create invoice screen, and we will, I think I can back my way to it. Yeah, so we will, no, I can't. Okay, so let's get back to that create invoice screen. So what we want to do is now we want to customize this screen. And since in this specific situation, we're trying to automate and bypass this workflow or this screen altogether, we're literally just going to put this hard-coded into the focus, and we will, so we need that, and then we'll basically be able to just bypass this screen. So we're going to copy this, and then we're going to customize this screen. And let's say on focus or load, it doesn't matter, probably focus, we'll do it on load. There's already stuff in here. By the way, the difference between load and focus, screen load happens when a screen gets closed and then gets opened again. So if you ever see a go to screen function, you can see that there's options here to close this screen or keep this screen currently open in the list. And screen focus runs every time that screen gets opened. Screen load only runs when it gets loaded up for the first time until it gets closed. So if you look at this create invoice function and we look at the go to invoice screen, which will be at the bottom of this, we can see that we're closing the screen after the navigation for the go to invoice. So we should be pretty safe in putting this in screen load because the screen gets closed every time after this automation. So we're basically just validating the fact that if we automate this screen in its totality, that we're going to be safe in it working 100% of the time. That's all. So we're just going to change this to it's not letting me choose text here, so I'm just going to create a new one. And we're going to update the display to that. That's 100% of the time. I like to disable things instead of delete them if I'm changing stuff. And then we're going to go to, I don't think you can actually check off the editable grid checkboxes. So that being said, we're going to have to just change the create invoice button. So we'll try that. I think there's probably one for mobile. Okay, so create invoice, just call create invoice 1. That's fine. What did we do? We did create invoice. So that's what we want. We want the one that calls it. Doesn't matter in that situation. Okay, so then we have the loop through grid, sales order line items. I'm going to uncheck that. And then we're going to loop through grid again, uncheck that. And then we're good. So we're just basically saying, we just basically are saying get all the things in the grid, which are all the things from the sales order. Doesn't we're eliminating the reliance on the checkboxes and we're just doing everything. So now when this screen loads, it's actually going to run this routine, which is okay right now for testing. All right, so let's go to this 40,319.42, change this to complete and save it. And we should get spit over to that and then spit over to the invoice, 40,319.42. And that's it. We just created our first automation in Method. We took a set of steps that we know for 100% of the time are going to always be the same. And we were able to create a workflow that went from potentially half a dozen or more clicks to one click, a save, and we get an invoice. Thanks for watching.